Welcome back to the Venture Mentoring Team's e-learning series. This continues our training series on the startup pitch deck. This session is about the company's traction slide. Now, traction is one of those magical items that's core to making the investment sale. In fact, in more than 30 years of working with early stage companies, I've learned that nothing impresses investors more than traction. It's the slide that separates viable companies from nice people with good ideas. If a founder has it and can prove that it's genuine, then they're in an excellent position to acquire capital to grow their team and their connections. I like to think of traction as the evidence of a startup's viability. It demonstrates the successes your founders have had so far and how they're progressing and finding their product market fit. Most importantly, it's a key milepost that helps convince investors that the business will be financially rewarding. Even successful founders who attempt to raise capital without traction will encounter more resistance and skepticism from their investors. But what's tricky about traction is that it takes on many forms depending on where the startup is and its growth. So let's think about traction as it might evolve for a successful startup. There are 4 stages to consider here: customer validation, pilot customers, pre-orders, and sales. Now, first comes customer validation. Interviewing potential customers and documenting the results of those interviews is likely to be a startup's first level of traction. For example, knowing that, say, 80 out of 100 potential customers say they need and would buy my product if it were priced at $20 or less is a form of initial traction. At the VMT, we encourage founders to interview hundreds of potential customers and partners and distribution channel owners as they create their solution. Remind them that successful companies are rarely created while staring at a computer screen. As Steve Blank says in his startup activities, quote, "There are few answers here in the building, so get out and talk to people." And note that those anecdotes will send a powerful message when shared with investors. Now, beyond interviews, digital marketing can be used to measure customer interest. It's a wide field with free and paid options. Founders with a strong connection to a wide audience always do better. Now, this doesn't mean that they have to spend thousands of dollars to build that audience. Many of these platforms are free or low cost. When founders demonstrate that there's a passionate audience looking for a solution to a problem, it can inspire investor confidence in the venture and the founders. A second level of traction is having pilot customers. Now, these may be non-paying customers whose participation helps improve the product, whether it's enhancing the taste of a protein bar or the functionality of a software application. The number of pilot customers and the constructive feedback received can also be shared to show an additional level of traction. The third level of traction is to have pre-orders or letters of intent or a shipping MVP. These letters of intent, partnerships, distributor agreements, pre-orders, and first shipments are all solid indications of product market fit, company growth, and that the startup is on the path to success. These agreements can be as simple as signing up for a product release email for a new consumer app, while others may be much more professional with properly created documentation and signatures from the appropriate people in the customer's organization. These letters of intent function as pre-sales events and provide investors with a real sense of visible demand. The final and most important level of traction is the one that everyone loves to see: sales. After all, growing sales are what every startup strives for and every investor smiles about. If your founder has sales, advise them to clearly show the amount, the rate of growth, and the future sales pipeline. Encourage them to describe how those sales were acquired, especially if they participated personally. And remember, while all revenue is good, recurring revenues are more impressive than revenue generated by individual transactions. Showcasing revenue stability is a huge value add and a great way for founders to prove they have a detailed understanding of their business model framework. Certainly, all projected revenue growth should be called out, but it greatly helps to show how the investor's capital will accelerate revenue growth. This will assure investors that the founder is aware that increasing revenue is the ultimate purpose of investment capital. Now, sales with profits is the ultimate goal and demonstrates ultimate traction. But a word of caution on placing too much emphasis on profits while sacrificing sales. Early stage companies with robust sales do not necessarily need to be profitable to get investor interest. Investors are looking to see how their capital is going to be used to increase the value of a company and make it profitable. While it may seem counterintuitive, in many cases, sales are more important than profits. Amazon, for example, has not shown a profit for most of its existence. And finally, a word of caution. It's important that founders be accurate when discussing things such as letters of intent, pilot programs, partnerships, and customers, because these are the first sources investors will call during the due diligence process. Make sure that your founder's description of their relationships is accurate. Any miscommunication here can undermine the trust built over weeks of dialogue between founder and investor. As we've discussed, the traction slide evolves as the startup grows from initial customer validation to sales and profits. I hope you've enjoyed this video on the VMT's approach to building the traction slide. Please take the following mastery quiz on the traction slide before proceeding to the next video. And good luck.